Take a breath. Our theme this month has been community. And my topic today is outrageously magnificent. Outrageously magnificent. We are greater than anything that we can possibly imagine. You hear me say over and over and over again that we are not nouns, we are verbs. Let that sink in for a moment. You are a verb. You are life in motion. You are life in motion. Life is happening as you, not just to you, but as you. And collectively, there is so much more about us than we can possibly ever know. The last word has never been spoken. The past can inform, but the past need not be the precedent for your future. Just let that sink in for a moment. If we allow the past to be the precedent for our future, then the ceiling's already there. Then we can never go beyond what has already happened. That's the big danger that we have sometimes when we rely too much on probability theory. Probability theory is based upon statistics. It's based upon what has happened in the past. And then it extrapolates that and projects it into the future. But it projects into the future just what has happened in the past. But we forget that there's possibility consciousness. See, what's probable isn't the same thing as what's possible. So where do you want to live? Do you want to live in possibility consciousness, or do you want to live in probability theory? And one of the insidious parts about the probability is that statistically speaking, the miracles, the things that are outside the bell curve, the things that are outside the norm aren't even counted because they're too far away from the standard, from norm. You can only be deviant so much. There's a standard deviation. But once you deviate too much from that, you're not even included in the sample anymore. So if you're constantly looking to the past, you're looking to the probability, then you're not going to see how miraculous things are. If you're looking at the statistics, you have a certain illness and you're looking to see, well, how long is the recovery period? Well, it says here the recovery period is, 4 to 5 weeks. What you're not going to hear about is the person that got over it in 4 days. What you're not going to hear about is the person that got over it in 2 weeks. Because it's too much of an anomaly and it isn't included in the statistics lest you think that's possible for you. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying that probability theory doesn't have a purpose. What I am saying is don't let it dictate. Don't let it dictate. It's good to have a sense of what's most likely to occur, but so what? There is nothing about my life that has been most likely. If you take a look at my life from beginning to end, there is nothing about my life that says it should have been possible. But what I know is true for me, is true for each and every one of us. We are greater than anything that's ever happened to us personally before. We are greater than anything and everything that's happened to everybody else before. Are you willing to be the first? Are you willing to be the first? Or are you willing to be the one to demonstrate the peace? Are you willing to be the one to demonstrate the power? Are you willing to be the one to demonstrate the outrageous abundance that is available for all of us? And don't take that too lightly, because too many of us equate love with sameness. The way that I know you love me is you emulate me, you act like me, and the way I know you don't love me is you don't emulate me and you don't act like me. So we make these little agreements sometimes to live in a certain degree of mediocrity so we don't rock the boat. To live in a certain degree of mediocrity that says we're all going to stay like right here forever like this and don't break out, lest somehow or another that is a betrayal to us as a family, to us as a culture, to us as a whatever. But are you willing to be outrageously magnificent? Are you willing to grow? Are you willing to transform? Are you willing to forgive? Are you willing to move beyond everything that you ever dreamt was possible? Life is just saying yes. We're the ones that set the boundaries. We're the ones that set the limits. The universe doesn't go, well, you've only done country western all your life. No, we can't sing the blues. We can't do classical. We don't do that kind of thing. It doesn't exist. Whether we like it or not, anybody can procreate with anybody. Because as far as the universe is concerned, there aren't any boundaries around that in terms of what's possible. Now, I'm not saying that everything is possible is what you should do. There are such things as ethics and there are such things as standards. But what I am saying is that the magnitude of the fineness, the magnitude of the goodness, the magnitude of the greatness, the magnitude of the audacious, just power that you have doesn't have a limit. It doesn't have a limit. Your body temple doesn't have a limit on how much it can heal. Your heart doesn't have a limit on how much it can love. Your creative expression doesn't have a limit on how much it can create. Just breathe that in for a moment. Breathe that in. So we're in this election season right now in 2020. And it is hotter and more contentious than any election that in my lifetime. And without a doubt, perhaps the most important. Stick to the oneness. Don't get into the divisiveness. And this divisiveness that I'm talking about is beyond party politics. It's a matter of the heart, where we're othering and we're no longer considering ourselves to be one with people. If you want a democracy, you have to have difference. If there's only one party, it's not a democracy. The democracy is where you have the differences of opinion that are all coming together. They're sifting, they're sorting things out. And just because somebody doesn't think like you, just because they don't emulate you, that's no reason to other them. Breathe that in for a moment. We have to get over this thing that we're doing now about Democrat, Republican, because it's meaningless. Within the grand scheme of the world and the divine, it's meaningless. And let me tell you, when you look beyond just the stuff that's the outer clamor of the news, there's actually more unification going on now than I have ever seen in electoral politics. I mean, well, like, what news are you looking at? There are more people crossing over. There are like over 100 Republicans out there that are staunch Republicans that are now saying, vote for this Democratic candidate. Because they know that it's not about the partisan politics. It's about the goodness, and it's about the vision and who's going in your direction. This may sound like a really weird thing to say, but I miss Republicans. I'm not really sure what's going on with the people who, this party that's calling itself Republican, but the Republican Party did not vote in this president. And the traditional Republican Party is not behind this president in so many different ways. But it takes everybody. I remember when we were in the big Prop 8 battle. Proposition 8 is the proposition in California that passed in 2008 that withdrew the constitutional right that the California Supreme Court had decided that same-sex couples had equal protection under the law and had the right to marry. So from June 2008 until the 2008 election, when Barack Obama was first nominated, there were marriages that were happening same-sex in California. Then Prop 8 passed, they stopped, and then there were all these court battles that went on. So it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the point of this is that there were two main people who argued the case against Prop 8, pro same-sex marriage, to the Supreme Court. And one of them was a guy named Ted Olson, who was this staunch Republican. He actually argued the case against Al Gore in the Supreme Court when it was trying to be decided about who actually won that election. And the LGBT community was like, what? Are you kidding me? You want this guy to argue our side in front of the Supreme Court? Are you kidding? He wrote a beautiful piece called The Conservative Case for Same-Sex Marriage that got the cover of one of the Time magazines. It was absolutely exquisite. And he did a phenomenal job arguing that. But if we had gotten stuck on the fact that, well, you're this party and we're that party, we would have missed this place of alignment that we had where we could work together. You look for the places of alignment. That's where the synergy is. That's where the juju is. That's where our democracy, it's at its best. When we can come from the left and the right, and we can come from all these different places. That's one of the things that I really admired about my big spiritual hero in the world, Yeshua. or whom we would know of as Jesus. And the way that Jesus walked around in the world with this ecumenity, in this way that regardless of your background, regardless of your religion, regardless of your tribe, your nationality, regardless of your religious station, he treated everybody the same. And he considered each and every one of these people to be his neighbor, and said that we needed to love. This love is the agapeo love, which is a love that is beyond a feeling tone. It's a conscious decision. It's a will. It's a choice. It's a volition. It's a oneness. It's a oneness. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your enemy. We forget that part about the enemy. He said that the greatest command was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So catch this now. If I love the Lord my God with all my heart, with all my soul, that means that I know I am one with God. And in that consciousness of knowing that I am one with God, I understand that everything is one with God. And that includes everybody else. It's kind of like algebra. If I'm one with God and God's one with everything and you're in everything, then you are one with God and then I'm also one with you. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that. But that's the crux of the spirituality. The crux of the spirituality is when we realize that there is this oneness. And this divine experiment that we have here in the United States, it's really extraordinary. In the second volume of my Letters from the Infinite series, there's a letter in there called the Governmental Trinity. And I want to talk about that for a little bit, because there's this way in which the three branches of our government parallel a certain spiritual truth. When you look at humanity, there are ways in which each and every person is like everybody else. No difference. That's the universal level, or what we might call the spiritual level. So there's some ways in which each and every person is like everybody else. Like concentric circles. And you come in a little bit more, there's some ways in which each and every person is like some other people. This might be like cultural things or social demographic things, affiliation kinds of things. Ways in which we're like everybody, ways in which we're like some people. And then there's ways, like even smaller, in which we are absolutely unique. Ways in which you are like nobody else ever. And I love the way that spirit always operates like this, where because we are so much alike, we can share blood and body parts, and yet something as seemingly insignificant as your baby finger has its own print like nobody else's. Isn't that extraordinary? You have the whole forest, but there are no two leaves that are exactly alike. And yet they keep multiplying the same kind of leaves all the time. This way that this universe works is incredible to me. So what happens here in our three branches of government that tracks this? The executive branch. And this is the only office in the whole nation that everybody votes for. Anything besides that is always your local, your state, but it's the only thing that everybody votes for. And at the federal level, this executive level, this is the level that is designed to be the universal for all. In its design, it's not designed to be partisan. It's universal for all. So whoever's in that office is there for the good of everybody. The armed services are not partisan. There's not a Democratic army and a Republican army. There's not a Democratic post office and a Republican post office. Everything that's under that federal thing is supposed to be for everyone. Once you get there, that's your charge. That's your charge. And then you have the legislative branch. This is that where each and every person is like some people. So you have the Congress, you have these representatives who were there and they're coming, and everybody's voting for their district and their people and trying to work it all out. You got the urban people and the farmers and the coal miners and the clean energy and like all these things that are going on. Ways are like some people. And that's its job. That's its legislative job. Duke it out. Work it out. And then you have the judicial. That ways in which nobody's like anything else. Part of that judicial branch is to bring it all together. The judicial branch doesn't make the laws. The legislative branch makes the laws. What the judicial branch does is to make sure that it's all working, so that if there's a law, but that law isn't playing out fairly for everybody, like your unique situation is being harmed differently, then it's that judicial branch that takes care of that. If there's some kind of way where you personally are out of alignment and you're breaking some kind of law or something, then there's a way that it can deal with you personally and the way in which you are out of alignment, where you can be prosecuted for whatever. But just think of this. Isn't this extraordinary that we have this system here that actually is mimicking something at such a beautiful, huge level? And I contend this isn't just about politics, that this capacity of ours right now to stand up for this experiment and to say we want to do everything that we can to protect it, we want to do everything that we can to preserve its integrity, is that if we don't do it, that at a deep fundamental level, politics aside, spiritually standing, it won't have any legs to stand on. You got to have a foundation. You have to have something to stand on that is solid. And this three branches isn't just built on otherness. I hope you can hear what I'm saying. It's not just built on this party or that party. It's built on an understanding of who we are. And we should never, ever, ever allow what's going on. Churches have been too silent in the past. They've been silent against wars. They've been silent against slavery. They have been silent about too many ills that have been going on in society. And it's not their job to shut up. It's their job to speak up. And we should never allow the people's house to be shanghaied. ever. The White House is the people's house. It is not for any particular group. It is for all of us. And I ask you now, will you move beyond anger? Will you move beyond depression? Will you move beyond cynicism and stand up for what you know is our possibility? Because other people are dimming their light, don't dim yours. And if we're doing nothing but judging the ones who are judging, or doing nothing but hating the ones who are hating, it isn't changing anything. If you're afraid that some people are trying to control everything, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to control everything? If you're afraid that one party is trying to eliminate your party, are you trying to eliminate their party? What do you want? And I want to put out a challenge to people right now. Instead of just the pity parties, instead of just doing the prediction polls every day, trying to figure out who's going to win this election in November, will you take that time and put forth your dreams? Will you use your social media to paint the picture of the world that you want to see? Will you speak of the collegiality, the camaraderie? Will you speak of the civility? Will you speak of the compassion? Will you speak of the unifying forces working together? What happened to officers of the peace? When did we become law enforcement? Can we speak of that? Can we speak of what we want for our children? Can we speak of education? Can we speak of the graciousness with which we want to treat immigrants? Can we speak of how we want to handle elders and educate the children? Can we speak of how we want to make sure that everybody's healthy? Can those be the words out of our mouths? Can that be the place where we land in consciousness? Can we keep affirming and reaffirming our magnificence? Because that's what's going to turn the tide. Everything is energy. And it doesn't matter what the object is. Hate is hate. Whether you hate them, they hate you, hate is hate. And the energy of hate will take you down the path that you don't even want to go. Will you put your energy in the direction in which you want to go? Most people have already made up their mind how they're going to vote. Way long time ago. Now the battle is over the quote unquote movable middle. Well, let me tell you something. The movable middle, like whoever this movable middle is, isn't going to be moved by your hate. It's not moved by judgment. This image is coming to me now of a teenager whose parents are getting divorced. And there's an ugly custody battle that's going on now. Teenagers like 16, 17, getting close to their majority age. And the judge is asking the teenager which parent they want to live with. Trying to get a sense of what the kid wants. And the kid's looking at both of them tearing each other down. The kid's going to be placed one or the other or some combination of both. But the kid's looking at this and going, I'm not feeling this. This is not where I want to be. In the middle of these people tearing each other apart. That's where the movable middle is. Those ones that everybody's campaigning now and spending their millions and millions and millions, that's where they are. They're like, you know what? I ain't feeling either. This one's shooting this one and this one's shooting that one. I don't want to be shot. I don't even want to be in this. Vision, pain pushes until vision pulls. We're magnificent. Are you speaking of our magnificence? Can people tell that you have faith in humanity? Can people tell that you believe that God is God and not Corona or politics or the economy or anything else? Can they tell that? Are you living your life like there are possibilities that are greater than what's happened in the past? I'm not saying these things as judgment. I'm saying this to call you up, call you out if necessary. Up, out, it doesn't matter. Just answer the call. Just answer the call. The world, literally, the world's eyes are on us. The world's eyes are on us. You don't have to get into the fray. I'm not asking you to jump into the middle of anything. I'm not even saying you got to listen to the news. What I'm saying is listen to the divine. See beyond what you see. Now is not the time to become cynical or depressed, because that's part of the game. It's just to wear you out till you don't care anymore, so you don't show up. No. Now is the time for compassion. Now is the time for caring. Now is the time for connection. Now is the time for affirmation. Now is the time for believing in each other. Now is not the time for you to separate from your relatives that you don't like. I'm not saying you got to keep duking it out with them on social media, but can you keep them in your heart? Can you keep a vision that has you and all of the people that you don't like? Friday, there was a march on Washington, 57th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. And this dream, he's talking about, I have this dream of the opposition, the dreams of the slave sons and daughters of the slaves and the sons and daughters of the slave owners, the descendants coming together. Is that your vision? Or are you just trying to win? You just want to knock somebody out? Then what? We're all still here. We can do better than that. And that's part of the reason why we are here. Because everybody thinks nobody else wants them. And if we can move beyond that and just get to this beautiful place now. I'm you, you're me. There's only one of us here. Only one of us here. We breathe that in for a moment.